ladies and gentlemen, independent Americans around the country and around the world. The NBA playoffs and the NHL Stanley Cup are not the only things that are full of surprises. American politics, national security, and news is nonstop. And we have a great guest, a returning champion, to help us sort through all of it. A man who is in the middle of all of these moments. Now, Senator, the great and powerful Senator Ruben Gallego is back on Independent Americans. Welcome back, my friend.
Thank you, Paul. I think you have the same Hot Wheels car setup that my son has.
Right?
Yeah, that's the one with the elevator.
Yeah, it's
gigantic. Yeah, he has that one too.
It's gigantic, and my wife wants to throw it away like every week.
Yep. I tell her it comes with a warning. Your wife will want to throw this away.
it's like a Barbie dream house for boys.
Yep.
Well, I've also, you can see over here, I got some Knicks stuff. Sorry about your Phoenix Suns.
It's all right. We got a Knicks.
Is Kevin Durant coming to New York or what?
I hope not. I could think of other people to trade, but if we got to keep Booker and Durant. I mean, there's something there.
Well, there is a lot of somethings there that I want to go through with you. Thank you for coming back on the show. It's been a while. You were on in 2021 when you were a congressman, and then you were on in 2023 when you were running for the Senate, and a lot has changed since then. Congratulations. Now you're finally there. But let's start with the basic question I ask everybody. Senator, where are you and how are you in the midst of all of this?
Yeah, I'm in my office in the Senate Hart Building. Overall, pretty good. I mean, look, I'm a healthy man. I got 2 kids. I got a 3rd kid coming June 12th. Boy, God bless. Hopefully everything goes well for mama and boy. I'm get to serve my country again as a U.S. Senator. Not the best of times, but I at least have the privilege of doing that.
Congratulations on the incoming baby. You're going to need lots of backup given all the things you're doing. I want to start at the top. Last time we talked was when I think Kirsten Sinema was still maybe a Democrat. And we were talking about your ability to connect with independents, which you did in Arizona, right? In a way that a lot of Democrats struggled to do in the last year. And especially now, you and others are kind of representing this new, more moderate, stronger on national security, bearded, tough guy kind of approach for the Democrats.
Hey, I've had a beard before it was cool. Okay, so just wanted to be clear.
I know, but now I think Murphy's got a beard, Buttigieg's got a beard.
They look good too. To give them credit, they do look good in beards.
You guys are a pretty bunch. Thank you. Wes Moore doesn't have a beard and is prettier than all of you, but that's for another time, right? Yeah. Let me ask you straight up. You're making the rounds. You were just in Pennsylvania. Are you going to build on this momentum and run for president next, or what?
Well, we're going to Pennsylvania.
Going to Pennsylvania.
Look, this has been something that I've been doing already. I've been traveling the country. This happens to be close enough that I could get, the hall pass from the wife on Mother's Day weekend to go and talk about what I'm seeing. Like Pennsylvania, Arizona, we're very similar swing states. There are areas of the country of the states that really need, Medicaid that will be severely harmed by these cuts that are also going to cut other things like SNAP and also I'm going to talk about veterans issues. Something that I've been doing a lot. Just also talking about the fact about how this administration is the most anti-veteran administration I have ever seen, and reminding people that, the Democrats are here. We are the opposition, and that we're here to protect veterans issues. We're here to protect your personal security and your economic security.
So you're not going to answer the question, right?
No. At least I'm honest about it.
You are, and that's what Democrats need to do more of. Let me ask you this. I mean, how do you can you overcome how shitty the Democratic brand is right now? I mean, you're a guy who I think has probably been more honest about that than many people in your party. But given that they're saying you are the future or part of the future of the Democratic Party, what does the future of the Democratic Party look like beyond optics?
Beyond optics, some of it is branding. Like, we need to be more authentic and less scripted. We need to be more literally speak from the heart and from the stomach than from the poll testing. And sometimes that's very difficult for our colleagues. We also have to honestly look at our base and understand that our base of voters are actually fairly moderate. And sometimes the most extremes of our party are actually pulling us away from what could be a very winning message, right? And like for me in Arizona, the reason I think I was able to succeed is because we recognize where the real vote was in Arizona, both among Democrats and independents, right? They wanted personal security. What does that look like? They wanted a candidate that was going to be pro-police, but also obviously have police accountability. They wanted someone that had to be pro border security with immigration reform. And I was able to basically communicate that those are also my values. But I was also honest with people because the economy was fucked up at that point. For people's personal economy, let's put it that way, right? Because if you talk to some of the campaigns, like, well, GDP is improving and unemployment's on the way down, but people personally felt shitty. They felt that they were not doing well. They couldn't buy what they wanted to buy. They felt stressed out. And this is talking to Democrats, right? And Latino working men. And instead of trying to sugarcoat that, we actually went right to it, like, yeah, you're right, man. This is shitty. What you're going through sucks. And it's not your fault. It's actually our faults. And I'm here to tell you that I understand that. And I'm going to figure out how to fix it. We were so afraid of being honest with even ourselves as Democrats that's how we ended up lying to the voter. And we keep doing that over and over again, hoping that somehow we won't get punished for it, but we end up getting punished for it.
I want to get to all the issues, ranging from Hegseth's latest antics to the trans ban, trans purge breaking news, the VA, even the crazy Veterans Day shit. But before I get to all that, you're also in the state where Senator Mark Kelly is, right? He was on the show a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, my man.
He's also a strong, independent sounding voice. You guys are coming from Arizona, where John McCain came from and was the most famous maverick of our time. But I asked him this question, I think, and I want to ask it to you too. Beyond the elections, what the fuck are you guys going to do to stop this stuff? All of it, right? I mean, you're a straight shooter. I've known you, I think, 20 years now, right? We go way back.
I still have my hair though.
What's that?
I still have my hair though.
Yeah. But you're a guy who says fucking shit and it doesn't sound crazy or fake because you're a Marine and you know how to get things done. But on a very basic level, I'm going to ask this of every leader I talk to. How
like very basic level, like there's no fucking rocket science to this. But the problem is there is no rocket science to this. But the real thing that we have to do is we have to make Donald Trump unpopular. And you do it by whatever means possible, but by whatever issue possible, to the point where then you could start bringing in other people that are on the sidelines to join us in a coalition, right? So by making Donald Trump unpopular, we've been able to most likely save most of Medicaid, right? Medicaid right now looks like they've moved from we're going to cut it to like we're going to trim it. Now we got to make sure they don't even do that, but we've done that by making sure Donald Trump is unpopular, by making sure Elon Musk is unpopular. There is no silver bullet, and I think like Democrats want this silver bullet, like we're going to get up there, we're going to give this barn burning speech and everyone's going to be inspired and the Republicans going to start crying, they're going to join us in coalition. That's bullshit. That's like West Wing shit. It doesn't happen in politics, right? Mm-hmm. This is brass politics. Make them unpopular, make his issues unpopular, get the Republicans to come towards our side because they want to win re-election. And then you have an opportunity to actually govern in a sane manner, right? But that's it. That's what we have, right? We have the power of the bully pulpit over and over again to restrict what they can do. And then hopefully not hopefully, but we got to win the election then. But in the meantime, attack. Bring them down wherever you can. And at the same time, by the way, you got to bring yourself up. We have to be not just the anti-Trumpers. We also have to be, the pro-security party, the pro-economic growth party, the pro-family, like all this shit we should be doing. So that way we give people a good reason to vote for us.
I think that you and Kelly and folks like Wes Moore, mostly veterans, right, have been uniquely effective in being able to do that, in part because he's also fucking up his own popularity, and nobody's doing that more accurately and more consistently than Pete Hegseth, who you and I also know for 20 years. It's mind-boggling that he is actually in this position, but he's a culture warrior that's waged war on the Pentagon. And if he didn't fuck it up, he would be even more effective, but he's kind of ahead of schedule here. So I want to just ask you about the latest. He wants to chop 20% of all generals. This is obviously, in my view, a part of the expanding purge of any kind of resistance
Yeah.
across the military. But what's your take on it, Senator, and how do you stop it?
Well, first of all, my take on it is it's something we have talked about, but the reason he's doing it is for actually nefarious reasons. I do think that we've had way too many flag generals that have been added. It's added, and then every general has to have a personal valet. They have to have their driver, all this shit, and it keeps them even more further away. As you can tell, who's the infantry guy here, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you got to do that in a smart way, right? Just like the Doge cuts. I would have been fine with certain cuts if we had actually gone together, studied it, figured out where we could have some cuts without really affecting, services, and then do it in a systematic way that also, respected these workers. Same with this, right? Why are we going to do these cuts without actually thinking about it holistically about what actually needs to be cut versus not? And I do agree, this is a purge to try to basically push out generals that aren't ideologically aligned. There should be no ideological alignment at all when you're a general. Your only ideological alignment is the Constitution of the United States. And I think what they're looking for is people that are going to be aligned to Secretary Hegseth and Donald Trump. And that's extremely dangerous for our democracy.
So speaking of dangerous to our democracy, Signalgate is ongoing. We have no reason to believe they've stopped using Signal. Waltz has failed upward and is in a new position, but Hegseth remains now in part surrounded by attacks from the people he brought in. This may be a day or two of a lull, but I don't think this is going away. And I feel like the chaos is continuing to expand. Just focusing on that specifically, how do we stop them from using Signal and disclosing classified information, which they may be doing right now, other than waiting for an IG report, which could take a long time and may not be binding anyway? What can you and other, especially veterans, do to stop it right now?
Well, number one, embarrassment. Number two, whenever we have the defense budget, you put it in the defense budget. But embarrassment, I mean, come on, Paul, if you had done this.
How do you embarrass people who are shameless?
Listen, the only reason, think about it this way. The reason Hegseth has his wife and family members on a Signal chat telling them what's happening is because clearly he is trying to compensate for something in his soul. So he's trying to impress them, right? Which tells you that they can be embarrassed, right? And there's people around there that need to be embarrassed. But also, we got to look at the legislative process where we can find reasons, and if we could ever find someone to prosecute these assholes, we should prosecute them because, again, you and I would not ever survive a court-martial for the shit that they're pulling right now. And I certainly hope that, when the tide changes, that, we have the UCMJ look at also who was involved in this on the uniform side, because they're not doing this alone. There are people within the uniform side of the Department of Defense that are doing this, and they need to be held accountable. And there is no statute of limitations to this, especially when you are in uniform.
You've called for Hegseth to go. A lot of others have called for Hegseth to go. I think Don Bacon is still the only Republican to call for Hegseth to go. He was on this show also a couple weeks ago. Are there any Republicans that you think are close to breaking? Are there Republicans that you can name that we can increase pressure on that can be the first, chink in the armor here to break the seal on the Republican backing of Hegseth?
I think there's some. I don't want to name anyone because then I think that might actually have a blowback because, I'm having my private conversations with some of these senators, and it's easy to demonize these guys, demonize all these Republicans, but there are some that are starting to understand the threat to national security. That's not necessarily, that they want to align with Democrats, but that's what they're doing. But, throwing their name out there is just not going to be helpful at this point. But, I think the more, again, we could amplify how dangerous and ridiculous this guy is, I think is very, 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 very important to this.
Staying on this, I know it's rapid fire, but right before we hit record on this, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Trump on, I think the media is misportraying it as a trans ban. It's actually more than that. We've discussed on the show, it's a trans purge because it doesn't stop people from going in. It removes people who are already in. I know you've been outspoken on this, but on the latest news with the Supreme Court ruling, again, what do we do about it? What are you going to do about it?
Well, again, I have to wait till we get to defense budget. From my experience, I've fought the trans ban in the past in the NDA when I was in the House. Let's just look at it this way: if people want to serve their country, right? Why are we going to throw them out? And especially because these are people that are already gone through the transition. They're just living their lives and they're serving their country. Why are we kicking them out? How does that actually make us a stronger country? By kicking out people that are trained, they've got the clearances, they've gotten everything else like that. And we're going to go and kick out thousands of these men and women. It makes zero sense. If you wanted to do the least amount of harm, you do a trans ban for people that can't join going forward, but you're actively kicking out people that have been trained. We've actually spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, training these men and women, and now we're just going to kick them out. I think it's ridiculous. It's a horrible way for you to actually administer the military. And again, it's a waste of resources, especially when we need everybody that we can to be in the military right now.
I'm 100% with you. I've been outspoken on this for, I feel like, decades now. We've been fighting this fight. And I think it's bad for our national security. It's dangerous. It's backward. And it's also insanely disruptive to the unit that you have to rip someone out of, as I think we've covered on this show.
For being who they are, they didn't do anything, right?
Senator, staying on the issue of national defense, it seems like there's movement now on Ukraine. We've covered this extensively for years on this show. We've got this minerals deal, which the Ukrainians are accepting and seem satisfied with, or at least willing to accept. What's next feels like potentially some momentum around strong sanctions on Russia, potentially led by Lindsey Graham and others. Can you give us a read on where you think the Senate is? And does this give Republicans permission to finally come out and support Ukraine and push the momentum in the other direction?
Well, so to give credit to a lot of Republicans, they have been supportive of Ukraine. It's just that when it came to the last couple of months in terms of getting funding to them, this is where they've been afraid of Donald Trump. Now, the one thing I predicted, I actually teased about, and I think I teased Trump on this, was that he was going to get played. And Putin was trying to play the president as long as possible, thinking that, maybe the president would eventually, give up on Ukraine. Now, it doesn't mean that he hasn't given up on giving up, but at this point, it seems like the president is at least willing to stay neutral to the point where it can be beneficial. What we need to see is not the sanctions. So we need to make sure that we are arming Ukraine and helping the Europeans also arm Ukraine so they could fight this war, effectively destroy the Russians' capability to both go on the offense in Ukraine, but also all along the eastern front of Europe. And we should not be afraid of that one bit. Ukraine is a sovereign, independent country. It's democratic. Does it have its problem? Absolutely. But the biggest problem you could ever have is Russia at your border. These autocrats, people like Putin, who will do anything they can to destroy our Western alliances and even us if he has the opportunity. And Ukraine, with giving enough time and money, they could absolutely cripple Russia's capability to be a world power. And we should gladly make that investment in Ukraine as long as Ukrainians want to go forward.
So is this a blip for Trump, who made a deal here, or are we seeing a total shift in positioning where we'll see people like Tommy Tuberville, for example, do a 180 and go from victim shaming Zelensky and, calling him a criminal to now supporting something like, a Lindsey Graham led piece of legislation?
Yeah, I think this is a blip, but it's a good blip. Nothing wrong with that. I think some of these Republicans are so strong. And also there's a whole ecosystem, by the way, of like right-wing influencers, some of them which were paid by Russia, and that we now know, that have a lot of influence over these primaries in Republicans. So they may not actually change. But even the president's neutrality in this issue is a big help. Just staying out of the way while Ukraine does its work, while we at least are passively supportive in some ways, allowing Europe to even pick up more of the slack, which is fine too. We could do that, but doing that will end up being, in the long run, very helpful to Ukraine. Again, even if it's just a blip.
Senator, the area that gets almost no attention in the national media right now because of the other maelstrom of shit flying at people is the VA. You have been focused on the VA. You've been focused on Secretary Collins, who Lindsey Church came on the show and called Deceitful Doug. I've said that he's as much of a culture warrior as Hegseth, just with a different accent and maybe flying a little bit lower on the radar. We now have seen the scope of the chaos. There's a big feature in the New York Times about how staff are being disrupted, about how therapists are leaving.
Yep.
I feel like the damage that's being done at the VA is extreme and extensive and way below the radar. But what's your read on it? I don't know if I didn't check beforehand, if you voted for Collins or not.
Yeah.
But if you did, do you regret that vote? And what are we going to do to hold him accountable? Because I think he's being, in the midst of all the Hegseth sparkle, he's kind of going below the radar and just ripping through the VA, and I don't think people see it.
So I voted for Collins, and I always want to give an opportunity to be able to build a relationship, especially with the VA, and I'm on the VA committee also.
Yeah.
And he has disappointed me, and because of that, I'm now holding all of his political appointees, and I'm holding him so they can't actually get elected. And if the leadership wants these political appointees, they're going to have to take 30 hours of debate and actually do it. And I did that because of their announcement that they want to cut 83,000 VA employees. And what we know right now is that, where do they come up with that number? There is no actual logic to that effing number. Like, who the fuck does that? Like, I'm just going to go and cut 83,000 hospital employees without any reason, which ends up being 15% of the workforce. You want to hear something really weird? They also sent a letter to the Phoenix VA saying they have to cut 15% of their workforce. So is this like some magic number that they have to be hitting, like everywhere at 15%? That's not how you run any organization. Paul, you've run some big organizations. You do assessments, you understand for needs, you allocate resources. And so, for bringing that to light, it's important. Me using whatever I can, as you said, when I'm holding up all those appointees until they prove that they're not going to end up hurting us, is extremely important too. But it is bad.
I want to stay on this if I can, Senator, because I covered this last week in the show and almost nobody else covered it. The House Veterans Affairs Committee and the chairman have now called on Pam Bondi to investigate former VA Secretary Dennis McDonough, right? Appointed under the Biden administration. They have weaponized and kind of sicked the Justice Department on a former VA secretary in a way I've never seen, right? This is like the worst political.
I didn't know about it, but yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, what do you expect to happen on SVAC here? Because it used to be an oasis of nonpartisanship. Those days are long gone.
I don't think we're going to do that in SVAC just because, as you now used to say, there's a lot of fuck games you can play, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think they want to do that, right? So
this is a fuck game they're playing over there. It's a dangerous one.
Well, no, the House is, but I'm talking about side, right?
Yeah,
because like, for example, that's why I'm holding all the VA appointees.
Yeah.
So if they start messing around, there's a lot of other things we could do. So like, I don't think they're going to do that. I don't know why they'd go after Secretary McDonough. I actually think VA McDonough is one of the better ones we've had in quite a while. And maybe that's why they're threatened by him. But
it just opens a dangerous Pandora's box here.
Well, but it's like this. It's a Pandora's box to also not getting good people in the future. But they're doing actual damage right now. They're getting rid of a veteran home assistance program. They're not replacing it with anybody without anything. You have the PTSD. Men and women that are going to PTSD clinics. They have to like have their conversations in open air cubicles. That's not going to be good. It's all these things that are just adding up to really bad things. And again, this is why. We should all just get on this for those that actually care about this. This is the most anti-veteran administration the country's ever seen.
And laying off tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of veterans without offering them any kind of employment off-ramp. You and I worked together for decades trying to create veterans employment programs.
Yep.
Now they've just blown that all apart.
And when you actually talk about like, well, you shouldn't have a guarantee of a job. Like, but this is what we did for 20 years to stop veterans from sliding into poverty and depression by giving them a mission-oriented job.
I can't let you get off that topic without asking you about Trump's floated plan to change Veterans Day to World War I Victory Day. Here you go. Tee off on that one.
The dumbest fucking idea ever. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw the DAV statement. They put out a press release. It simply said no.
Yeah. Okay. That's it. No, there.
There you go. All right. Excellent. I just want to ask you, bringing it back around, you've been really aggressive in tackling Trump on the self-deportation stuff. You said, hey, we'll give you $1,000 to leave. You're kind of in a leading position for a number of different reasons to be maybe the lead element in challenging him on all this immigration stuff. Do you feel like there's any way to score any wins here, or is it just about slowing him down and stopping the stupid shit as it comes daily?
Right now, it's slowing him down. It's also important that we actually expose the human element to this, right? Like a lot of people during the election, and look, Trump and I won the same state, and we had different conversations on border security, but people were reading it differently from both of us, right? I talked about the need for more border security, hiring more border patrol, stopping the people from coming in, stopping the meth, right? Adding, fences and walls where you need it, hiring, more customs officers, whatever it is, right? And I talked about, yeah, let's deport people that are here that have criminal records that are causing problems. The president said the same thing. The only difference is like I actually meant real criminals. He just used as an excuse now it's going after everybody, right? Destroying families, just creating distrust within the communities, and at the same time potentially destroying some of the economics of some of these people work in jobs that no one else will do. But I think the Democrats going forward will find Republicans that are in alignment that we do have to come up with a real border security plan that talks about what the future should look like, and also has real emphasis on immigration reform that is long lasting. So we don't have to keep doing this and having this argument every 10 years. From my experience being a border state member of Congress and now a senator, a forward-leaning position is going to be more important for us to be able to convince voters to trust us than just always saying no, no, no. We need to really have a real plan to show that we are we are the party that brings both security to your family, as well as compassion to those that should be here and we should want to be here. So our dreamers, the family members of veterans, for examples, or even people that are here, with family members that are U.S. citizens, but they're not.
I'm going to let you go in a second, but I got a couple quick questions to finish. One, this is Independent Americans. We've tried to elevate a lot of independent voices. I've talked to maybe as many as half a dozen independents who may run for Senate this year. Brian Bangs just declared in South Dakota he's going to run against Rounds. Dan Osborne may run in Nebraska again, this time against Pete Ricketts. If there's not a Democrat or not a viable Democrat in those races, will you support an independent vet who's running against a Republican?
Oh yeah, I mean, like, look, this is a big tent sort of situation. Like, I take everything obviously at analyze the situation at hand. But for those that have aligned values, maybe you don't have 100% aligned values, but if you're going to be better than the Republican, which most of the time that's the case, sometimes not, but most of the time, then of course we'll support you.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that, man. And I hope other Democrats will echo that.
As long as you don't run against me.
Right. Well, we talked about that last time. I remember.
I told you, yeah.
I said to you, I said, what if Kirsten Sinema leaves? And then
I said, what did I say? I said I would still beat her and I would still get the independent vote.
Yeah, well, yep. I mean, it was a wild dynamic that you rode through in a way that I think was really important and fortunate for the people of your state, because they avoided a radical and a shapeshifter, essentially. I don't know what you would call them. But last question, you're a big boxing fan. You're a fight fan. You Democrats are getting your ass kicked on toughness and pop culture and the manscape and all that other stuff, the manosphere. When are like you and Wes Moore and Pat Ryan, I don't know who else, when are you guys going to start going to UFC fights? And when are you going to start going to boxing matches and,
okay, first
and
of
actually
all,
fighting for the space around the fighting?
I already go to boxing matches. I
know you do.
I went to one about a month ago for a local guy named David Benavidez, who's going to be champion a couple of days ago. And then just a little embarrassing. So this Saturday was the Canelo fight.
I saw it, yeah.
And I was at a conference with the McCain family, actually. And I begged them like to let me go into their house, because it's at their house to watch the Canelo fight. And so I downloaded Danza and ordered Canelo. So I'm pretty excited. I mean, the Canelo Crawford fight, September 13th, that's going to be pretty huge. So I don't know if you want to go with me to check that out.
I would love to go with you.
Yeah.
Canelo is amazing.
My general thing is like, I do a lot of, I mean, I go to boxing matches. I do all this stuff. Like, I don't like making it political because then it seems even more inauthentic, right? But
Yeah.
I'm at those events too.
Well, there is maybe a celebrity death match dream of a charity where we've got, Cash Patel and Hegseth and RFK in an octagon against, I don't know, you, Wes Moore. I don't know who else you're going to pick, but there's increasingly this fight between the fighters that is
Yeah.
in different places, and
Can
I'm
I
glad
pick
you're
Sharice
out there.
David? She used to be a UFC fighter.
There you go.
There
There
we
you
go.
go. You guys are stacked. All right. Well, listen, I want to thank you for all your leadership, man, for coming back on the show, for being a role model for vets. You've always been out there. You've been so candid and honest. You don't forget about the issues that especially veterans and military folks care about. Congratulations on the new baby. Congratulations on being senator. And thanks for all you're doing for this country and our community, man.
Thanks, brother. Catch up soon.
Absolutely.
Adios.
Take care. Adios.